Hello, students. So, after chapter number 15 on sound, we are now moving on to chapter number 16, that is reflection of light. It is related to light and how it gets reflected, that we all are observing daily, but in a scientific way, we need to think about it. So, we get different senses we have in our body, sensory organs. The sense of vision, in earlier chapter we have seen the sense of hearing with the help of our ears. The sense of vision is the most important one among all the five sensory organs in our body. Which are the five sensory organs in our body? We have skin, that is related to touch, nose for smelling, tongue for taste, ears to hear, and eyes to observe. So eyes are considered to be the most important sensory organ in our body. Because of this, we can see the beauty around us, the hills, the trees, rivers, people, and identify the different structures and different people and objects around us. Only with this we can see the beautiful view of nature, like the clouds, also rainbow, flying birds, moon, the stars, etc. The world is so huge, and everything, each and everything we can observe only and only because of the two eyes that we have. So they give us a sense of vision, and the brain interprets what we are observing. When we see from the eye lenses, the message is being sent to the brain by optic nerves, and the brain interprets whatever we are observing, what it is, and then we can easily understand and take action accordingly, isn't it? So if you see at night or in some closed room, if we switch off the light at night for some time and then turn it on again, what happens? What happens? Earlier you close it down, everything is dark, and then you suddenly put on the light. What we can do is we could see the objects in the room clearly. When we switch off the light, we could not see all the objects, and in the darkness, if we are going to walk, obviously we will get strangled or fall down because of any object in the way. So if we put on the light, what happens? We can see all the objects very clearly, and when we switch off the light, we were unable to see objects around us. So this is the way, the feeling of observation, view, or sense of vision, we should say, is done with the help of eyes. And from this activity at night, which you can do at home also, you notice that there is some connection between the sense of vision and light. Sense of vision and light. Without light, we are unable to see objects, but when light falls on it, we can see them, isn't it? So we switch off the light at night, the objects in the room cannot be seen, and they can be seen as before when the light is switched on. So we can see objects when the light coming from these objects enter our eyes. So what exactly is happening? Suppose this is the source of light. Okay. The rays fall on any object. Suppose this is a table. It falls on this object. The rays will fall on the object. And when only we can observe it with the help of eyes. What we can see now is the reflected light enters our eyes. Okay? And when there is no light, if there is no light, what will happen? These light rays which are falling on the object and then going towards our eyes will not occur. In that case, we will not be able to see this object on which the light is falling. Okay? So, there is direct connection between light and our sense of vision. If light is not there, we will not be able to see. The light entering our eyes may be emitted by the object or may be reflected by the object. Now this table is not an illuminous object like our source of light, that could be a bulb or sunlight also it could be. So when the rays of that object either will enter directly, we will see that there is source of light, or if the object is non-illuminous, it is not having light of its own. In that case, these rays fall on that object and is reflected, and that reflected rays enter our eyes and we see. To understand this, there is an object. You see around us, we all know that sun is having its own light. It's a burning ball of gases. So it has its own light and it emits its own light. So sun we can understand is a source of light. But moon and other planets, they are non-luminous. They do not have light of their own. They do not emit any light. In that case, we are unable to see them in darkness. But when the sun's rays fall on them and from their surface, these rays are reflecting and entering our eyes, that time we can see that there is moon in the sky or some of the planet around the earth. The reddish planet can be identified very easily, that is the Mars or Mercury. In the morning sky and all, you can see them only because the sunlight they are reflecting. They do not have their own light, so all of them cannot be seen. Only stars have their own light, and that we can observe at night. But if sunlight or any the light is falling on the other objects, celestial objects like the moon and the planets, then only we can observe them. So what is exactly reflection of light? When light rays fall on an object, when light rays fall on any object, their direction changes. Now you see here, this light rays were going straight, but when the object came in between, the direction change of the rays. Otherwise, these rays would have gone straight away. But there is a table in between, and because of that, the rays get reflected. They change their direction. Okay, and they turn back. This is called as reflection of light. So how will you write the definition? When light rays fall on any object, their direction changes. The direction of the rays changes and they turn back. They turn in the backward direction again. This is called as reflection of light. Okay. Now, many activities can be performed related to reflection of light. Torch light, if we have, and if we have a mirror, a stand for hanging the mirror, black paper you can take, combo white paper, drawing board also. All these things here are needed to perform an activity that you can have in your home. So you have to adjust the comb and torch so as to get light rays on the white paper. Now, if you get the reflection from the mirror, you put the torch in the mirror and the reflected ray that if you catch on any paper, in this activity, light rays which fall on the mirror gets reflected and travel in a different direction. Okay, they will be traveling in a different direction. Why so? Because we all know inside the mirror, if this is a mirror, in a mirror one side it is blank. So, and this is the source of light, say a torch. And when the rays are passed towards the mirror, what happens? These rays travel inside the mirror and we can see the object in it. When the object inside the mirror, the image is formed, from there the rays are again coming back and they are getting reflected. So they get reflected and travel in a different direction from the direction in which they were coming from. Okay. In that case, the rays falling on any surface are called as incident ray. Here also we can see that we will call this as incident ray. The ray of light which is falling on any object, we call it as a incident ray. Okay. It will be traveling inside the mirror and image of the source of light will be formed there, and that will again reflect the light from inside. The point at which an incident ray falls in is called as the point of incidence. Now you can see this point where the incident ray is falling is called as point of incidence. Okay, very important terms when you are studying with the light chapter. We should know what is an incident ray, what is the point of incidence. The ray going away from the surface after reflection is called as reflected ray. The ray that is again coming out and moving away from the object that we call as reflected ray. Reflected ray. Okay. So incident ray, point of incidence, reflected ray. These are the three important points when we are studying chapter light. The direction of the reflected ray is decided by certain rules which are called as laws of reflection. But before that, you should know how the incident ray and the reflected ray are coming up, and one imaginary line in between the incident ray and the reflected ray is called as normal. Okay, this imaginary line is the normal. Now, because of this imaginary line between the incident ray and the reflected ray, we get two angles. Can you see? The angle between the normal and the incident ray is called as angle of incidence. And the angle that is formed between the reflected ray and the normal is called as angle of reflection. Okay, so these very important terms: incident ray, point of incidence; reflected ray, normal, angle of incidence, and angle of reflection are the very important points that we all should know. And you see, from these pattern, how the light gets reflected, light ray gets reflected, certain laws are being made. There are 3 laws of reflection. So first thing, when you start with this chapter, you have to write down definition of reflection of light. What is the definition of reflection of light? When light rays falls on an object, their direction changes and they turn back. This is called as reflection of light. Now we come up to the laws of reflection. There are 3 laws of reflection. What are they? Depending upon these studies, we can understand the 3 laws of reflection. There are 3 laws of reflection. The first one, if you see, is the angle of reflection is always equal to angle of incidence. These angles are always the same. So, angle of incidence is always equal to angle of reflection. Is the first law of reflection, and that too for a smooth surface. If the surface is a rough one, this is a smooth surface. If it is rough surface like our roads of Nagpur, you will not get the angle R is equal to angle R. Angle of incidence will not be always equal to angle of reflection. But for a smooth surface, it is always angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. Okay. Then the second law, the incident ray, the reflected ray, reflected ray, and the normal. And normal lie in the same plane. In the same plane. You can't say that the angle of incidence falling somewhere, angle of reflection, reflected ray coming from somewhere, and the normal anywhere somewhere else. It is not like that. All these 3 should be in the same plane. You can see it here, how they all 3 are in the same plane. And then we come up to the third law of reflection, that is the incident ray and the reflected ray are on the opposite sides of the normal. Incident ray and reflected ray are on the opposite sides of the normal. They can never be on the one side of the normal. Both incident and reflected ray on the one side of the normal or this side of the normal. It's not possible. They will be always opposite side to the normal. One upper side, one lower side, one right hand side, one left hand side, like that. Okay, so these three laws of reflection we have to learn it by heart. Definition of laws of reflection of light we have to learn, and this diagram we have to draw with proper labeling in our copies, all of you. Okay, so hope you will do it in the fair copies. See you soon. Bye, all of you. You can take a screenshot and note down the laws of reflection if you wish. Okay, and draw the diagram also. Bye.